Hi, and welcome to Today's Parent, where we connect with experts and provide you with information to make your parenting journey a bit more easier. I'm your host, Christine Casina, and on today's show, we'll be talking about matters discipline. And in studio, we have counseling psychologist Esther Mbao, who'll share with us insights on how we can do one of the jobs we have on this earth and do it the best way that we can. Esther Mbao, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christine.
Even just before we get to discipline,
Yes.
parenting,
Yes.
one of the top jobs, if you ever get the opportunity to parent, I think one of the jobs that we must endeavor to be good at is parenting.
Yes. But sadly, it's a top job, but we never go to school for it. You go to school to become a doctor, an engineer, a journalist, but we don't have parenting school, which is so sad because at the end of the day, we are churning out our next generation and ensuring continuity of humanity. So it's a top job with no school to go to, sadly.
You know, when you think about it, we go for marriage classes,
Yes.
we go for birth classes, but we don't go for parenting classes.
True.
Maybe we need to invest more in going for parenting classes.
I think so. But if you're also looking at just enhancing your parenting, that's why the psychologists are here. We've learned human behavior. We've looked at parenting styles. We've looked at what works, what doesn't work, what is evolving, even in terms of discipline, because discipline is not being instilled the same way as it was being done a few years ago.
Very true.
So that's why we're here as counseling psychologists.
Very good. So where we start from today,
Yes.
when it comes to matters parenting, the topic of discipline,
Yes.
where does it start from?
I think we first need to define what is discipline, because we need to be very clear. Even before we go to disciplining of the children, you need to ask yourself as a parent, am I disciplined? Because discipline basically is about doing what you know you're supposed to do, whether you feel like it or not.
What I'm supposed to do, whether I feel
Like-
or not. You know,
Yes.
once you have become an adult, that becomes very relative because you are thinking, hooray, I am free, I can do whatever, however.
Sadly, no. It's actually something that you need to emphasize more in your life. If you're trying to lose weight, you need to have discipline to run day in, day out. Whether you feel like it or not, you need to eat the right food, whether you
Discipline.
feel like it or not. That's
Discipline.
discipline. If you're to get that A at school, you need discipline. If you're to achieve your goals and your dreams,
Oh, you have to be disciplined.
you need to be
You
disciplined.
have to be disciplined.
So discipline is not about the spanking or the giving of punishment that we instill on children. Discipline is holistic and it's an everyday thing you need to do. So for you need to first ask yourself, am I a disciplined person? You know, am I able to be in control of myself? Because I can't control and teach other people self-control.
If I'm not self-controlled.
Yes. You cannot give that which you don't have, Christine.
That
I
is
can't
true.
ask you for 50 bob and then you're trying to look for it all over. You need to, if I come and tell you, give me 50 bob, it's yours. So you'll give it to me so readily and so available. So discipline is about what you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. And discipline begins even before you think about becoming a parent.
So it starts before.
It starts way before.
Explain.
It starts from your everyday life, like I have said, you know, in terms of your goals, in terms of your everyday life, you need discipline to go to work. That's very basic, very basic. You need discipline to drink 8 glasses of water. Very basic, you know, everyday life, everyday situations call for discipline. So you need discipline begins with us. And the society is me and you. So me and you need to ask, are we disciplined? No matter what other people are doing out
And whether
there.
somebody is seeing or not.
Yes, and whether someone else is seeing or not, you do the right thing. That is what is also called integrity. So discipline
Actually, they are
and
interlinked
integrity.
when you talk about when you put it that way. They are interlinked.
Yes.
They are interlinked.
Yes. So as a parent, it starts with you. It doesn't start with your children.
So even before I think about being a mom, being a dad, starts with me.
Yes. You know the way we keep saying, I'm looking for this sort of person to get married to. Are you that sort of person? This is how I want my child to be.
Are you that kind of person?
Are you that kind of a parent?
Before expecting the same from your child and more.
Yes, it begins with me. So today, begin by asking yourself, which areas of my life do I really need to instill discipline? And with my behavior, because our children do what we do, they don't do what we say. What am I teaching them in terms of discipline with my actions?
They
Day
do
in, day
what
out.
we do.
Yes, yes. When I get home and let's say, for example, I say no TV, yet I'm on my phone throughout. Is that discipline? You know, when I tell my children during meal times, you can't do 1, 2, 3.
And I'm doing it.
And I'm doing it. Or, classic example, when I'm on the phone, someone asks me where I am, and you lie in front of the child. Niko hapa tu.
Mom, you're still at home. I take that person, you hapa tu. Ama niko karibu kufika.
Yes. So actually, discipline is best taught by your actions, not even in what we are saying or when it comes to punishment. Because when you hear the word discipline in Africa, it comes back to spanking, yelling, being made to feel so guilty. That is not discipline. There's a very distinct difference between discipline and being punished.
Wait, so let's start from before I become a mom.
Yes.
We've talked about that.
Yes.
Then I have become a mom. I have 2-year-old and below.
Yes.
Starting from that young age.
Yes.
How do you discipline a 0 to 2-year-old?
First, even before you go to the 0 to 2, you need to sit down if you're with a partner or with your spouse or whoever you're living with in that house. What are we going to set in terms of our boundaries? Because the other thing we do is we get married, we move into a house, we start parenting. We've never really set the ground rules.
Right.
Like, this is what we are going to live by. You know,
right.
The constitution of this house, we have the constitution of Kenya.
But the constitution of this I love
house,
that.
what are we going to do? So that even when you get a nanny, you're very clear and you're telling them, this is what we live by, this is what is allowed, this is what is not allowed. So you're choosing, as you're coming to Rome, you're going to do what the Romans are going to do.
Yeah.
So you agree with your spouse. Which values are we going to instill in our children? What are the rules? What do we both want? You know, even at an individual level, there's what I want to instill in my children.
And what you want.
There's also what my partner wants to instill. So we agree.
So you find a middle ground.
We come to a middle ground. And even as we're coming to that middle ground, we're understanding each other. Where do you come from in terms of your discipline in parenting?
Because both of us were raised differently.
Yes, very differently. We come from that era of being authoritarian, not even authoritative. So we also need to understand from where we are coming from in our backgrounds, how has it shaped our parenting? So once
That's
you
a good
agree
point.
on that, moving forward from the 0 to 2. Discipline begins with not allowing the child to sit in front of the TV so that you do other things. Discipline begins by setting a routine. And the other thing about routine is children thrive very well with routine. If you don't have a routine in your house, your child becomes psychologically disturbed. So discipline begins by setting a routine.
So they know what they can expect?
Yes, from birth. You see, even when you give birth, you're also told, have a routine for your child so they understand.
Yeah.
This is the time to sleep. This is
the time to wake up. Yes.
Yes, so they fully understand that there's a routine from the word go. So we're actually in a house where there are structures and there are rules and there's a way of doing things. So from there, moving forward with your child, you're also able to start looking at what do we want to instill in this child at every stage, because there's something they need to learn at every stage. Like from 0 to 2, we are basically, as parents, setting a foundation of trust, especially with the way we take care of their basic needs. From 0 to 2 is about establishing trust. So the way you breastfeed or not breastfeed, the way you respond to them when they're crying and you're saying, mtoto ananisumbua, that establishes whether this child can trust you or not.
That they can count on me.
Yes. And if I can trust you, I can trust you to lead me to a place of discipline. If I don't trust you...
And I will listen to you.
And I will listen to you. If I don't trust you, I will not listen to you, and I will not follow what you're trying to teach me. So 0 to 2 is basically about establishing routine, but even establishing trust.
I have a question.
Yes.
So you have a 2-year-old toddler stage, and you know how chaotic it can be. Hitting, biting, yelling, all that.
Yes. It's called the terrible twos.
Where? I'll give you a scenario. You're at the supermarket.
Yes.
And of course, you know what happens there when sometimes you have a toddler.
Yes.
Screaming and yelling because they want that particular toy.
Yes.
Rolling on the ground. And from one parent to another, you're looking at this parent and you're thinking to yourself, if it was me. But then you also have those ones who are looking at you like, can't you just get a hold of, you control your child. But it's not easy having a 2-year-old.
True.
And you're coming from a place where I want to have a conversation with this child and tell you, Baba, well, I will buy you this toy at the end of the month when I have money. But this 2-year-old is not, you can't even have that conversation. So my point is, how do you discipline a yelling, hitting, you know, a toddler.
Yes.
What tips can you share?
Okay, first why I'm laughing, it's happened to me. I have 3
Oh.
children. So it has happened even to the best of us with the knowledge. And what happens with a 2-year-old, they're trying to create autonomy from you. They're also trying to test your limits.
I'm my own person now. I know what I'm doing.
Yes, that's why even sometimes when you take them to the potty, they don't want to potty. They're trying to tell you, know what? In as much as you're in control, you can't be in control of everything.
I will come when I'm
Yes.
coming. I will come when I want to come.
Yes, that's why they want to try and feed themselves. That's why they want to try and pick what they want to wear. You
Some
know?
level of independence.
Yes, and that is where also independence for the adult later is established. So you need to be very clear. When I'm in the supermarket, is it about me or is it about the child?
It's about getting out
Already.
here peacefully.
No, it's usually about I don't want to get any more embarrassed.
Yeah,
So it's
it
gone
becomes
back to
about
being
me.
about you.
It's not about the child.
Yes. So you need to go back and ask yourself, it's about this child. It's about creating boundaries at this point, because these boundaries are the ones that will also be tested in their teens.
Do you think in that moment you can think like that? But I know you're encouraging us to think like
Yes, you need to be calm. You always need to try and remain as calm as possible. So you need to ask yourself at that point in time, what do I want to teach this child? Do I want to teach them that they can always have their way? Do I need to teach them that we need to talk about these things, or we need to budget, or, what do you really want to instill in your child at that point
So
in
how do you
time?
handle this toddler?
You can allow them, it depends with you, but what I would do, I would actually just ask them we go out for a walk. I'd leave my shopping, tell them we go out for a walk. If I have to carry them, I will carry them, but ensure they're safe, because some of them roll and bang their heads, so you need to ensure that your child is first safe. But then move them away from also the crowd, because the crowd also makes them more nervous and they vent out even more and they react even more. So take them to a place where you can sit down and calm them down.
Okay.
Yes, that's a key thing. You may not be able to teach the lesson then, but you need to calm them down. Once they are calm, then talk to them. Because children also listen and they learn. Our children are not, as we like to say, stupid, or they're just there to be seen and not heard. Our children listen. So it's to be able to first calm them. Because at that point, when they're throwing a tantrum, they're venting out an emotion. What is that emotion? How do you meet that emotional need? The other thing about children, not only the 2-year-olds, when a child is venting or throwing a tantrum, it's a cry for help. It's not that they're really trying to usurp the authority or go against you.
There's something they're trying to communicate.
An unmet need that you need to meet psychologically. So maybe they have learned even at home, when I cry, that's when I get to watch TV. When I cry, that's when I get a lollipop. When I cry and I'm bored, that's when mommy gives me attention. So now that we're in the supermarket,
let me cry.
Let me go forth
Because
and
mom
do
is
this.
going to,
This is the only time maybe mom listens and responds to me.
When I cry.
Yes.
When I cry.
When I cry.
Welcome back to Today's Parent. On today's show, we are talking about matters discipline. We have a question from one of our viewers, and she asks, if me and my partner have 2 different parenting styles, how do we get a middle ground? Esther,
Yes.
what's your take on that?
And I truly appreciate that they have different personalities and they have different parenting styles.
Right.
But they need to sit down and agree on a few things. It is okay for them to be totally different.
Okay.
I actually say when you get married, you don't dissolve and become one. You're 2 individuals trying to appreciate each other with your uniqueness and building each other up. So what you do, you complement each other with your different parenting styles.
Right.
If one is authoritative and the other one is authoritarian, you can actually see how that works for you and not against you with your children.
Right.
Because if your children pick it up, they will use it against you. So what will happen, if dad is more relaxed than mom, they'll always be going to ask
For
dad
dad for stuff.
and then they tell mom, dad said. Because children pick up also these discrepancies.
And they
Children
find
are
a
very
way to
smart.
play you against each
Yes,
other.
they play against you. So what you guys need to agree is, I'll be the final voice of reason and you'll be the softer one. It is okay. It is very okay to have different parenting styles, but look at how does it work for you guys as a team. Because you're a team as parents.
At the end of the day, you need to work as a team.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
So now let's move on to disciplining a bit older children.
Yes.
And not beyond. Let's talk about, we had talked about 0 to 2. Let's
Yes.
move beyond 3 years.
Yes.
What pointers can you share with parents?
Okay, so for the 2-year-old, even before I move ahead, it's about regulation, because potty training is about self-regulation.
Right.
Feeding themselves, it's about regulation. So how are you bringing in regulation to this person's life? How are you starting to instill self-control in them? Please don't abdicate this duty to the nanny. I actually like to say that you need to try and be there as much as possible. I know we are all working moms and dads.
And very busy
Trying to make the hustle work and trying to get the next dollar. But we need to be there for the children, because here you're doing self-regulation. From there, moving forward, 3 to around 5, it's about instilling values. So which values are you trying to instill in your children, you know? And how are you doing it practically? If it's about spirituality and religion, do you go to church yourself, or do you send them off with the nanny? Because that, you're communicating something totally different. Is it about integrity? Are you showing them integrity while you're there? Is it about hard work? If it's about hard work, go with them to work some days. Let them know how you're making the money. It just doesn't come easy. So this is where you're actually setting some values and the foundation for these values.
Right.
Because later on in life, these are the values that actually they pick up. It is usually say, train up a child in the way he should go, and they will not depart from it. It's very true. But the values are set from 3 to around 8 years there, to be more flexible.
Right.
And then also they're also trying to learn, can I be more independent? Can I be more industrious? Can I take more initiative? So don't discipline or punish initiative. Sometimes this child will take a glass, take it to the kitchen, and then they drop it. You punish them for trying to take initiative in their lives. You keep telling them, you know, this glass was expensive.
You know how much I bought it for?
Yes. And you know, we grew up in that era where there were dishes for the visitors.
And dishes for
us
us
guys had
regular.
plastics. I wonder how that has affected most of us, because it's a self-esteem issue. But what have you done to that child?
But how do you
by
balance
making
that,
them
by the way?
feel that this glass is more important than you?
So how do you balance that between, you know, not being too harsh and not being too lenient? That in this house you can just go around breaking glasses.
Yes,
How do you
I
balance
think
that?
it is how it was handled. Was the child careless? You know, what actually happened? If something happened in between, you need to let them know that I'm punishing you, not because the glass broke, but because maybe you carried too many and I told you to carry one at a time.
Yeah, so that requires punishment.
That requires punishment. But before you punish, I always say, let the child know, what was that choice I made? And what is this consequence that I'm facing? Many of us punish without taking time to explain to the child. And this is where positive discipline comes in. Because positive discipline calls for you to respect your child within the boundaries you have set.
Right.
But if they're not respecting it, there are consequences for it.
And you've had a conversation.
Yes, but even if you're spanking with a lot of respect.
I wonder how you spank with respect. You know, when we were growing up, spanking was just spanking. And it was that very hard. Eh?
Well, but how did you
And
feel
the
at the
parent
end
was
of
the parent
it
is
all?
upset at that time. Eh?
Yes. Also, don't punish when you're upset. You need to learn to teach your children self-regulation by you also regulating your own emotions.
So managing your own emotions first as a parent.
Yes. If you're shouting and you're screaming, you're actually not screaming at the child. You're screaming at yourself. You're angry, not because of what the child has done, but because of the meaning you've made out of what the child has done. There's actually a theorist who says it's not what happens to you, but how you perceive what has happened that causes you psychological disturbance.
True.
So you need to ask yourself, when I'm shouting, when I'm screaming, it's not about the child, it's about me. Because most of the times you keep telling the child, you have embarrassed me. You have let me down.
So it becomes about the parent, not the child.
Yes, it
So
becomes
the
about
child is always afraid of letting you down.
Yes.
It's always about what will I do to make dad or mom happy.
Yes, already you're giving them self-esteem issues, because what they'll be doing is they'll be asking, am I making the other person happy? Am I doing this according to someone else's standards? Instead of you teaching them, these are the standards we've set, we've agreed on this, so are you doing them according to the standards we set? Are you happy with what you have done?
You know, that can kill a lot of initiative because you never want to try.
Yes.
One, you're afraid to fail.
Yes.
Then the other thing, you're afraid to hurt mom or dad.
Yes.
So you just never want to try, and you're always seeking that
True.
reassurance. Mom, did I do it okay?
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing about parenting is we try to parent them as if they're adults like us. We need to remember these are kids who know nothing as they come into this world. So we're the ones to teach them. So you need to come down to their level, what we call empathy.
Empathy.
Try and put yourself in your child's shoes.
When I was a 5-year-old,
Leave alone when you are 5-year-old. When you're a 5-year-old in this day and age, with social media, with internet, with PS, with being left with a nanny, try and empathize at this point in time. Fine, I was a 5-year-old, but a 5-year-old in this day and age is even tougher.
Yeah.
I was a 13-year-old in my age, and it was about writing letters. Now it's WhatsApp.
WhatsApp.
Try to put yourself in their shoes. Empathy really helps a lot when it comes to instilling discipline and also when it comes to punishing. Because then you're able to set what are the limits for punishment. And I'm not saying stop punishing children. People need to know that choices have consequences.
So talking about consequences, when it comes to discipline, of course, you have said there needs to be, consequences.
Yes.
So how do you punish as a parent without, affecting the child's esteem and how they look at the world and how
Yes.
they, even affecting the relationship that you have?
Yeah.
How do you punish effectively?
Mm-hmm. When you were setting the rules initially, there are limits and there are consequences. If this does not happen, this is what happens.
These are the consequences.
But as the children get older, like when they're 6, 7, and they're beginning to reason, that's when they ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You can introduce them and tell them, can we reevaluate the rules? Because also as they get older, your control is starting to move now from control to actually being more of a consultant. So initially you are in total control. But this person is discovering there's a world out there.
So they have an opinion.
I can reason, yes. So they have an opinion. And we're in this day and age where we listen to their opinions. If you don't do that, you've actually set a bad precedent for when they need you in their teens, they can't come to you.
Yeah.
They will go to the people that listen to them. And they could be the wrong people. So for you to be very safe as a parent and for you to also continue setting the right ground, you need to listen to your children.
So number one, listen to your children.
Yes, listen to your children. Have conversations with them. Talk to them about what is right, what is wrong. Listen from their point of view as well, because as they go to school, they also taught these things.
Yeah.
So as they continue to grow, they know. But if you don't talk to them about these things, they will try those limits.
They will.
They've been taught at school, stealing is wrong. But because you've never talked to them about it, and you've said in this house, bringing other people's things or taking other people's things are wrong, they will do that.
And you're right. Sometimes it's just a matter of somebody coming home with somebody's sweater,
Yes.
somebody's pencil pouch. You never ask them to take them back to school.
And that's how it starts. That's how it slowly starts. And later on in life, it becomes a big issue. So involve them in the rules, involve them in the sense that if this doesn't happen, what do we do? Spanking is not the only form of punishment. You can take away some privileges. You can give them chores like gardening, or so those things they don't like. There are things they might like to do, but there are things they don't enjoy to do.
What's your thought actually on spanking?
Children know they have rights, and in the Constitution.
So you tell them choose between 3 and 5.
What do you want?
And where?
Yes. Now that we have talked about what you have done and you have seen it is wrong, first you have the conversation. What do you think we should do? There's the spanking we had talked about. There's the withdrawing of TV for 1 month.
Does timeout work, especially for younger kids?
Yes, especially for the 2-year-olds, it helps them control their emotions and relax. So timeout does help.
How does it? How do you implement timeout?
Timeout is just basically about telling the child, you've done this wrong. Maybe you've beaten someone. I want you to go sit on a corner and think about it.
Or until I come for you.
Yes, or until I come for you. I know, in my son's school, they have what they call a dark room. They don't spank because he's in a kindergarten. So what happens when you do something wrong, you're taken to the dark room to go and think about it. And it's been very effective, especially even with the school setting. So they know if you do something wrong, you go to the dark room. So they avoid as much as possible to go to the dark room. But even after the dark room, I like that the teachers also talk to them. So it is something that can also be instilled in other schools.
Okay.
Yeah, so apart from the timeout and the spanking, you can also withhold privileges. You could also do, like over the weekends, not allow them to do certain activities. So it's basically looking at, if I was to take this, what does my child really value? So if I was to take it away, would they learn the lesson? And then when I give it back to them, they actually appreciate that, yes. For me to enjoy certain things in life, I need to have discipline. For you to become a rich person,
You have to have discipline.
so it begins when they're young.
Well put.
Yeah.
Well put. And as
Yeah.
we're winding up the show, when you think about a parent of today, today's parent,
Yes.
do you think we've become lenient, too lenient on how we are disciplining our children, how we are punishing our children? What's your take on that? And how, as we end as well, what pointers you can share with the parents to discipline strongly but with love?
I think many of us are parenting from a point of pain because many of us were parented by an authoritarian parent. Both parents were like, you're there to be seen and not heard. So we said, when I get my children, I'll become friends with my children, which is not a bad thing.
Right.
Because we wanted to be friends with our parents, but we never got that chance.
Right.
There's a thin line between being a friend and still being a parent. You need to remember, even as you're being a friend, you're still the parent. You're the final authority. And you need to know that whatever you're doing to your child, especially between the ages of 0 to 13, it's a seed you're planting. You will harvest it in bountiful years later if you
Especially
don't
in
correct
teenage
it.
years
Especially in
and
teenage
beyond.
years, because our teens actually test the values that we set out for them much earlier. You know, if for you church was important, that's when the teens start saying, I don't feel like going to church.
Yeah, but mom, you never go.
Yes.
And I never used to go, so how are you
Yes.
telling me to go to church?
Yes, so whatever you had established much earlier, it's very easy to reinforce when they're trying to test the limits when they're in their teenage years and they're trying to discover who they are.
Right.
And they also carry it forward with them for life. So that's why it's actually said charity begins at home, not out there. If the society is rotten, it's because the home is rotten.
Starts from home.
It starts from home. If children can learn roles at home, they can learn them at school, they can learn them out there, and they can actually obey the Constitution of Kenya.
Well put.
Yes, so everything begins at home. Everything begins with you disciplining and not punishing. Because punishing goes back to about being you and not being about instilling values and structures into your child's life. So discipline is about focusing on your child. And that's what we need to do as parents. Stop focusing so much on us. Go back to being parents, and we can be authoritative parents. Parents who can say, I will listen to you, but at the end of the day, these are the limits that I am setting out. So it's okay to be your friends with your children, but remember you're a parent. And you need to set some basic foundation for your child, for them to be effective, and for them to be successful later on in life.
Thank you very much, Esther.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you. And the one thing I've gotten from you, as a parent, it starts with me
Yes.
before trying to discipline or parent my child.
Yes.
Integrity, discipline, setting a good base
Yes.
starts with the behavior that I model as a parent.
True.
Thank you for coming to the show. We have learned a lot from you when it comes to matters discipline and parenting.
Thank you for having me, Christine.
And we look forward to having you another time.
Always a pleasure.